And joining me right now here on a Thursday to preview UCF football as they're going to be taking on Cincinnati this weekend at the Bounce House. As always, these guys do a great job. First off, Eric Lopez with Black and Gold Banneret and Trace Trylko with Sons of UCF. Eric, I'll start with you. How you doing today, buddy?
Doing good. This is a big week. This is the real rivalry for UCF, not some media fabrication. This is a game that's been circled. I'm excited that college game. Oh, no, wait. College game day's not here because the football team didn't show up in Greenville. But, what are you going to do?
Well, we were talking off air. Trace actually went to North Carolina and covered that game. What happened, buddy?
Yeah, Trace, what happened?
What happened?
That's all. I mean, by the way, Eric, you forgot to mention that this was a top 25. Oh, it's not a top 25 matchup. That's also out the window. I think you and I said to each other, Eric, that this is a terrible loss. It cost him game day. It's a conference loss. It cost him a top 25 ranking. The new Big 12 commissioner, Brett Yormark, in town. Everything could have been just set up so, but no. Now, how about Holton Ahlers, 30 of 36, just stood there. Eric could have thrown against UCF, just stood there. And 4 turnovers. You don't win games on the road. I don't care what league it is, what day of the week it is. And as I asked senior long-time offensive lineman Sam Jackson, what went wrong? He was talking about communication breakdowns along the offensive line, and I followed up with, it's game 7. Should you still be having these things? This is still a work in progress. And we got Halloween coming up. Trick or treat. Who shows up on Saturday? Is it good Plumlee or bad Plumlee? Who knows with this team now? But a poor performance for the Knights and a deserved loss at Greenville on Saturday.
Here's what's interesting. Last week, Trace, he said, trap game. You were throwing that out there, the trap game.
I asked about it. I don't know if I believe.
He didn't believe. I believed in it.
I don't know if I believe in the concept.
Really. Eric, why did you believe?
Fabrication.
Eric, why did you believe in it as a trap game?
Well, I think it kind of proved itself. I don't think UCF respected East Carolina. I really don't. I think they looked past them. I think some of the players did. And I think about the timetable and all this. We're talking College Game Day. Those guys watch College Game Day. What happens on that show that Saturday morning? Lee Corso says if Cincinnati beats SMU, game day's going there, basically, paraphrasing what he said. He doesn't even mention the UCF East Carolina game. I thought the thing that blew me away, and Trace was there in person, so he got to see them up close. I didn't see any intensity. I saw a team that just didn't know, it was a first trip. We talked about this. This was their first trip outside of the state of Florida. And I thought East Carolina just was the team that wanted it more. And I thought UCF just kind of showed up thinking, hey, we're just going to do our thing. And it didn't work out. And the concerning thing about it, Mark, in the 2 years now under Gus Malzahn, I'll give you this stat. UCF is now 1-5 in games outside of the state of Florida. 1-5 in games outside of the state of Florida. To me, some people might think that's what's the big deal? That's a fluky stat. Is it? I don't know. The good news is this week they're at least in Orlando, Florida. So I guess they're a better team when they're in the state of Florida. But I think moving forward, they got to figure out why they don't play well outside of the state of Florida. Because I don't know, Trace can correct me on this, but there are no, when we go to the Big 12, there's not a game,
You mean they don't have Temple in Philly?
No.
Isn't that the lone road win?
That's the lone win. Yes, that's correct.
Coach Malzahn. 2 other things there. Coach Malzahn talked about tempo, how ECU controlled the tempo and the energy, meaning, hey, coaches, what were you doing? How were you out-coached? I felt like they were out-coached too. By the way, you ever notice UCF, when their opponents never say, well, UCF showed us something we'd never seen before. But boy, you hear UCF coaches from Heupel to Malzahn will say, boy, ECU brought something different. Well, okay, adjust. You're paid big bucks, guys. Make an adjustment, but certainly from an energy standpoint and that tempo standpoint. Of course, it helps that ECU has shorter fields, but I'll tell you what, they were very methodical in their drives. 8-play, 9-play, 10-play drives. They just kept draining time off the clock. And, but UCF has chances in this game. They're down 17-3 at the half, get the second half kickoff, score 17-10. Hey, defense, get off the field. 9 of 14 ECU on third down. So a team loss across the board, and no idea which team shows up on Saturday against Cincinnati. Must win for the Knights, or a start planning your Boca Bowl, Gasparilla Bowl plans. By the way, Knights 5-2, not yet bowl eligible. So there's still that.
I have never heard you two talk like this. If there's a panic button, you're smashing it right now. That's what it sounds like going into Saturday. Eric and I talked about this the other day, so I'll stay with Trace. When they're down double digits, can this offense, can they come back? Because I don't feel like they can if they're down big.
Do you get good Plumlee or bad Plumlee? And, do you continue to effectively use the run game? Coach Malzahn keeps talking about balance, doesn't seem to use Johnny Richardson much, and we need to see even more of RJ Harvey. To answer your question, not against a Cincinnati, maybe against a Temple. They need to put together the kind of game they had against SMU. Which I think going into that game was a quality opponent. So if you're dismissive of the FAUs and the South Carolina States and certainly Temple, by the way, I'm not a big believer in trap game, but I do think there's a bit of a hangover effect from 70 points that you put up against Temple that you think you can go in.
Excited
anyway.
about scoring 70 against Temple. I can get it if it was basketball, but not in football. I mean, are we really that excited about that we're going to get cocky because we scored 70 against a team that, quite frankly, should be in the Pioneer League with Stetson?
Let's check back. Did they score 70 in men's or women's basketball against Temple in the upcoming season? We may like those 70 points that football put up. But no, I mean, you use it as a game of progress and what Plumlee confidence, as Coach Malzahn continues to say, one of his talking points. He hadn't played quarterback in a while, so the more reps that he gets, right? So a positive, but those points, as they say, don't carry over. So I don't know that I support trap game, but I think when you score 70 against Temple, you think you're going to put up more than 13 at ECU.
All right, we're here with Eric Lopez and Trace Trylko. They're a little on edge today. They're getting ready for Saturday. I can tell. Eric, tell us about the Cincinnati Bearcats then.
Well, this was a team that people like Trace Trylko, who had a vote in the American Athletic Conference poll, preseason poll, and other media outlets were telling me how they weren't going to be any good this year because everybody they had last year was drafted.
Not as good. Not as good.
Oh, not as good. Now that
not good. Not as good.
The impression I was told is they have a bunch of walk-ons, apparently. Well, no, guess what? They're still pretty good. Not as good as last year, to Trace's point, but they're still the team to beat. That's the funny thing about it. Luke Fickell is the best coach in the conference. He just became the all-time winningest coach in Cincinnati. They still have a defense that's very aggressive, that's among the best in tackles for losses and sacks, which is a concern when your offensive line's still a little questionable, as Trace brought up earlier. And they're going to come here with energy. They play with energy. They play with passion. They have a great front in the defensive line and the offensive line. They're a physical team. They have a good running game. Charles McClellan now is their leading rusher. So that still continues to be good. Ivan Pace is a defensive player, Mark, you're going to love. He was made to be a Chicago Bear. All right? 72 tackles, 8 sacks, 15 and a half tackles for loss. He's probably the best football player on the field this Saturday. How does UCF contain him will be a key. And Cincinnati, to me, is playing with house money. There was not high expectations from the people out in national media. They thought they would drop back. Maybe they will, but they're in position right now. If they beat UCF this Saturday, you look at the remaining schedule for Cincinnati, I think they're cleared as far as playing for hosting the conference championship game. After this game, they host Navy. They're going to be a big favorite. Host East Carolina, at Temple, finish hosting Tulane. I think they win out. I really do. So to me, all of the pressure in this game is on UCF, not on Cincinnati. I think Cincinnati's playing with house money here.
Okay. All right. Trace, I will give you the floor. You can clarify, how did you vote in the preseason? I will let you take it.
I had Cincinnati third. I think they're good. I just don't think they are as good. And you see that in their quarterback, Ben Bryant, that he's not Desmond Ridder that we saw last season. Knights are at home. I do think there is some pressure, but it's homecoming. Knights have been very good at home. And in fairness, Cincinnati has struggled in wins over South Florida, is closer than it needed to be last week for them. Only loss, though, for them, Arkansas. So credit to them. That's not on the resume a bad loss, right? And for UCF, though, at some point, if you're the future of college football, and they changed that moniker a little bit now with Brett Yormark coming to town, it's the future of college athletics. And the future is when? Exactly, because this is your final season in the American. This is it now. You control things here on out. You've got Tulane ahead of you on the schedule. You've got Cincinnati. You're going to control those games at home, the one on home and one on the road. You got to win them, right? Or this is be a second loss. And I don't have a great deal of confidence in this team with road games at Memphis and Tulane that they don't have another blemish on their record. But it can't be this week against Cincinnati. And I know you'll ask ahead about keys to the game. Offensive line, defensive line. We talk about it all the time, right? And these are going to be themes. If we continue doing this in the first year of the Big 12, we're going to talk about those things as areas of concern, perhaps, for the Knights. But they have certainly been throughout this season.
It's a must win. It's a must win. I mean, it's just the bottom line. The season's on the line here, Mark. The season is on the line for UCF this week. They win this game. Now you could say the East Carolina game, you throw it out. Hey, it happens. One of those things. You're right back in the mix to host, in the mix for the conference championship, maybe host it. You lose this game, you lose to this because this is the team. And if UCF fans don't want to admit this, this is the team your measuring stick game here. This is the team you kind of compare yourself to. That's the team you hate. You know why you hate them? Because the media loves them. They did something you didn't get to do. They made the college football playoff. Okay, and they didn't do it by complaining and ripping the system. They just won games. And that's why they have to win this game, because I don't think the fan base they'll be beside themselves if they lose to Cincinnati again in a year where Cincinnati's, quote, rebuilding.
What do you think game for the Knights? Knights don't lose much at home, but it has a loss in that COVID-impacted season to Cincinnati. Cincinnati leads this series 4-3. So, last week the talk was the series with ECU is 10-10. Will they ever play again? Will UCF leave that series with the lead? Drop that one. So I think as a measuring stick, it's also these teams are going into the Big 12. And I think you can have a healthy argument. Credit to him. I wasn't a big Luke Fickell fan early on, but, money talks, and he stayed loyal, and he stayed there, and he's building something there. And it's interesting how he's building it. He has a much different approach than Gus Malzahn in building, heavy on the high school recruits, less so on the portal. It's interesting as time evolves here to study those two approaches. UCF has dipped a lot into the portal, and I think they want to find the right balance there. But certainly a measuring stick game and a bragging rights game going into the Big 12. Cincinnati could extend that lead to 5-3, and certainly a punch to UCF. Hey, we're both going into this Big 12 together, but hey, who's owned the American the last couple of seasons? UCF. It's not the future of college football.
And if Cincinnati wins, they're basically the message is Cincinnati's more ready for the Big 12 than perhaps UCF is. That's why, again, I'm telling you, this is a significant game for UCF in the Gus era.
You two are fired up. I love it. I love you two are fun. You two are ready to be coordinators for Gus Malzahn. I could tell on Saturday. The question is,
the difference is we would actually show up for media availability.
Whoa, hello.
What?
Hello.
What?
Do you like the 3:30 kickoff? Because usually we're under the lights for these types of games.
I think UCF would prefer that 6 o'clock the time slot. I think it'd be more fun at a night game. I think it's been interesting to see the players, several of them going on social media. Fans fill the bounce house, an official sellout, but after the loss to ECU, people also flooding the ticket market there, trying to make a buck on their tickets. I mean, it'll be a strong crowd for homecoming, but you know how UCF fans are. It's sunny out. It's too hot. It's 3:30. There'll be enough excuses. You may see some aluminum in there, but it should be a raucous environment. I think it'd be better as a night game, though.
Eric?
Better get used to these time slots. This is probably what we're going to be getting in the Big 12. Some noons, 3:30s. I mean, look, man, I remember when 3:30 was like a big time slot. I mean, had UCF shown up in Greenville like Trace did, if they would have just done what Trace did, which is show up, we would be on ABC right now.
Hey, I had energy too.
You did have energy.
Okay.
I mean, I could tell in those tweets and the videos that there was energy there.
I had energy.
But yeah, it's a fine slot. Yeah, you would prefer night game, it's louder, whatever, but 3:30 is fine. They would have been on ABC. Again, you could have had game day, then right to the game. It was perfect. As you could tell, Mark, we're not going to get over losing game day anytime soon. on this, but yeah, I'm fine with the time slot. I personally like it. I'm more of a 3:30 guy. I'm not a night game guy. I like to get home at a reasonable time, especially when there's an NFL London game the next morning. I got to get up to see.
This is what I'm going to tell you both. So, Florida plays Georgia at the same time coming up on Saturday.
Blowout.
Yeah, so blowout. When I saw that back in the summer, my first reaction was like, no, I have to go to the UCF game. That's the better game. I'm like, if you had to choose between the two games, I think everyone here in Central Florida, you got to see what UCF's going to do, right? I'm ready. I'm ready for Saturday. I'm sorry they're not going to get College Game Day, but
I feel bad for you, Mark. I know you were rumored to be in that list for celebrity guest picker with Lee Corso. I mean,
and if that fell through, he was prepared to camp out overnight for his prime spot.
Yeah,
right there.
That's what it was. I told this to Eric the other day. I'm going to say it to you, Trace. This is one of those games where, and I say this a lot, it's very corny. It's a meat and potatoes type game. Just shut up with everything else. Stop with, we lost College Game Day. We're going to wear this weird jersey. Go basic. Go run, like you said, run the ball, stop the run, win the turnover battle. It doesn't have to be pretty. Go win the football game. Forget slogans, forget everything else. Go play football. That's how I look at this football game.
And to that point, I thought Coach Malzahn and his staff did a good job of figuring out ways to grind out wins in his first season. And this may be one of those games. They certainly didn't show a way to grind out a win at ECU, but I think going back to last year, a win over ECU and some others, that they found ways to win. And so we'll see if they can do that. Offensive line, defensive line, run the ball, right? Basics. Don't get crazy fancy. You can't get crazy fancy with John Rice Plumlee, right?
And
he's not got the deep arm of Dylan Gabriel where he's going to light things up. So he can't do that. Stick to basics and do those things well. But you saw when ECU threw in some wrinkles, as you know, Luke Fickell and his staff. Remember, go back to Josh Hyde. Oh, Cincinnati showed us something we weren't expecting. That's because Luke Fickell's a good coach, right?
Yes.
Yes, he is.
Here's what I'll just say on top of that. I want your thoughts. Kind of like in the Louisville game. They're going to stack the box on John Rice Plumlee. They're going to stack it on him. What are you going to do? Right? What are you going to do? They're going to be like, can you throw the ball down the field? They're going to dare him to make plays down the field. It's going to be up to him. And it's going to be up to those receivers. I think the receivers are my X factor in this football game. They got to step up and make plays. Would you agree or disagree? I'll start with Eric.
I will disagree from this standpoint. It doesn't matter if the line can't block them. And that's the thing that Cincinnati, they are the best, great sack team, time of possession. One of the other issues in East Carolina, and Trace knows this because Gus addressed this week in the media he was asked about it. John Rice Plumlee tends to hold on to the ball instead of throwing it away. And the last thing you want to do against this Cincinnati defense is play, behind the chains, going in, third and long, second and long. That's creating trouble. That's what Cincinnati feeds off, is putting pressure on the quarterback and putting you in long distance and force turnovers. So to me, that's a key factor there. I think time of possession is a key stat here too, by the way, because UCF this year is 0-2 when they've lost the time of possession battle. This is not the UCF teams of the past that could have the ball for 10 minutes and score 40 points. It's not going to happen. They need to have control of the ball. And against Cincinnati, whoever wins the battle, I mean, I know this is cliche, but I'm curious to see who wins the battle as far as the rushing game for both sides, because I don't think either team wants to have their quarterback chucking the ball 30, 40 times a game. Not with can UCF put pressure on Cincinnati? The other frustrating thing about East Carolina was they kept blitzing and blitzing and blitzing and couldn't get home. And as a result, Cincinnati burned them with their skill position guys. So time of possession, can you block them? Because Cincinnati's going to come. And I agree with Trace. Luke Fickell every year brings in a new wrinkle into this game that like, they didn't show that all year on TV. I don't know what happened there. That pretty much ruined Dylan Gabriel's career because they brought in like a 3-3-5 defense that they had not shown the whole year on tape until they saved it for that game. So what does Luke Fickell have in store for John Rice Plumlee? John Rice Plumlee has to protect the football and throw it away. Throw the ball away. Don't hold on and take sacks. Those are key factors in this game.
Trace, you get the final word.
Final word, offensive line. can they give him any time? And can, I think you'll see an Isaiah Bowser, running back Isaiah Bowser, who's good blocker, be utilized to help protect JRP. Wide receiver drops. Jalen Griffin had that early drop against ECU. Next play, interception, John Rice Plumlee. You're not pinning that all on Jalen Griffin. They didn't have a completely healthy Javon Baker, and he's had a connection with him. Certainly, we've seen in games this year drops. Let's talk defensively a little bit. I mean, 9 of 14 again on third down was ECU, and Holt Naylor's 30 of 36. I don't care if it's Ben Bryant. I don't care who it is. Let him stand back there. What pressure are you going to get on him? Knights only have 2 interceptions through 7 games, so they've not been some great turnover machine on defense. So a lot of pressure, both sides. I think Eric said at the outset, pressure on UCF. Cincinnati can afford a loss somewhere here. A loss for UCF knocks them out. That having been said, I think it is going to be a fun atmosphere. Knights do well at home.
Yeah.
And I think that they have the opportunity to win. They know that their season is on the line as well. And it'd be interesting to see if they come out with that energy and intensity. And the other part that Coach Malzahn said, well, ECU controlled the tempo of the game. Hey, UCF, how about you control the tempo of the game against Cincinnati? If you're going to let Cincinnati come into your house and dictate the way things are going to go, you're going to find yourself leaving there with a loss.
Great stuff. Before I let you go, Trace, one more. What do we need to check out with your coverage?
Sons of UCF live show Thursday, streaming from 8 to 9 on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Available anytime on the Sons of UCF YouTube channel. We also participated in Media Day for men's and women's basketball on Wednesday. So we're uploading those interviews from various players on both sides, both teams. So you can find all of that there. Anywhere you get your downloadable content, all your audio content, Sons of UCF.
And Eric, we know you only broadcast winning teams. You don't have to say it.
Top 25 teams, okay? Women's soccer ranked in the top 25, won American Conference regular season title. You mentioned soccer earlier this week.
Yeah.
Volleyball back in the top 25. As George O'Leary once said, Trace knows this, if you're not top 25, what is it? You're not good enough? You're not for me. I guess that's me. But you follow me at Eric Lopez, Black and Gold Banneret.com for all the latest. We'll have a podcast to preview the Cincinnati game, basketball media day, as Trace mentioned, the Olympic sports, as we talked about. We'll have night shift after the Cincinnati game. Might be a special night shift. Sources are saying that I might make a cameo at the football game or negotiate. Because, like I said, they need some inspiration. Softball will be honored during the game, so at least the fans could see a conference championship team on the field on Saturday.
Well, they can see Cincinnati too. I mean,
that's correct. So softball will be there, so I might be there. We'll see. We're negotiating that. We'll see if we can make all that work. So, but I'll big full coverage on blackandgoldbanneret.com throughout for the big game against Cincinnati, the rivalry game, the real rivalry game. Big game. Can't wait.
The must-win game for the Knights.
Bring the energy, Mark. Bring it.
I will. Great stuff, guys. Have a great day.
Thanks, Mark.